Our son has passed away. Are you going back to your parents' home now? We plan to start using this house from here on. The words hit me like a blow. I hadn't even finished mourning, and my mother-in-law, her face unreadable, was already nudging me out the door. Just days after the funeral, they had arrived, not to comfort me but to claim the home I shared with my beloved husband. Memories of Matthew were everywhere here, in every corner and every room. How could I be expected to just leave? My name is Cheryl. I work as an office clerk at a real estate company, where I met my husband, Matthew. He was introduced to me by his brother, a colleague and friend. I had never expected our relationship to evolve into something romantic, but over shared lunches, casual chats, and unexpected moments, I grew fond of his gentle smile and quiet charm. Matthew was warm, sincere, and always there when I needed him. It was his brother's meddling that finally brought us closer. A coincidental lunch reservation left us alone, sparking a connection that grew into love. A year later, we were married. Matthew's parents welcomed me warmly, and our visits to their home always felt comforting. They weren't overbearing, respecting our independence, and never prying into our plans. They were reserved, polite, and, or so I thought, genuinely kind. But their facade was fading now, with Matthew gone. Matthew and I had moved into a lovely home gifted to me by my late grandfather. A prime location, rich in memories, but it was more house than we needed. We had planned to sell it and start fresh somewhere closer to our workplaces, somewhere with fewer reminders. We hadn't anticipated Matthew's sudden transfer to a distant city, or that he would be leaving alone. Promising to visit on weekends, he reassured me with a kiss. "My parents will check in on you so you won't feel lonely." I was comforted by this, though I knew I'd miss him terribly. Matthew kept his promise, but his mother's visits soon became overwhelming. Every weekend, she appeared at my doorstep, insisting we go out together. At first it was pleasant, shopping trips, lunches, keeping busy to ward off the loneliness. But over time, her invitations became relentless. She'd show up unannounced, ignoring my fatigue, pressuring me with outings I could hardly afford. Then came the expensive lunches, shopping trips to boutiques, always with me footing the bill. I was bewildered. She was always careful to leave the restaurant just before the check arrived, her smile tight and expectant. "You don't mind, right? You can manage." I tried to brush it off as thoughtlessness, but her behavior grew stranger and more invasive. Then, one afternoon, she arrived with my father-in-law, and the requests began to shift. "We could use a bit of help financially," she started, her voice full of forced innocence. They hinted about their financial troubles, suggested loans, even asked outright for money. I tried to deflect, suggesting they talk to Matthew instead. "Matthew's busy," she snapped. "It's your role to handle this now." My heart raced as I thought of Matthew, his health visibly deteriorating each time we spoke. I didn't want to burden him with my concerns, but the weight of their demands was suffocating. And then, it happened. My worst fear came true. A call from Matthew's colleague shattered my world. "Matthew collapsed," he said, the words echoing in my ears. "A heart attack. We couldn't save him." I don't remember much after that. The days following the funeral were a blur, my brother-in-law helping me manage the details while I floated in numbness. It was only days after the funeral that my in-laws arrived again, but they didn't come to console me. My mother-in-law was smiling, her face cold and smug as she looked around my home. "We'll be moving in," she said without preamble, waving her hand toward the doorway where a moving truck loomed, packed with their belongings. "You can go back to your parents. This will be our home now." My heart clenched as realization dawned. They wanted my house. They hadn't even waited for the soil to settle on Matthew's grave before attempting to take over the one place where I still felt connected to him. A suspicion I'd buried long ago surfaced. Had they only accepted me because of this house? "That's not possible," I said, my voice trembling. "This house is no longer mine." I was met with shocked silence. I could barely hold back a smirk as a second moving truck pulled up, this one belonging to the family who had bought the house. "I sold it already," I added. The shock on my mother-in-law's face was almost satisfying. She stammered, "What? What do you mean?" I watched the new owners step out of their car, a family with bright eyes and eager smiles, surveying the house they had legally purchased. They looked between us, their confusion growing as my in-laws' truck blocked their path. The movers, caught in the middle of a bizarre scene, exchanged confused glances. My mother-in-law's face twisted in fury. "This is our son's wife's home," she yelled at the new family. "You have no right." The family looked to me for an explanation, and I nodded, my words calm and certain. "I'm terribly sorry, but the sale was finalized before my husband passed away." The movers had no choice but to pack everything back into my in-laws' truck. It was a strange sort of justice watching them struggle, angered and bewildered. My mother-in-law's insistence turned to desperation. She tugged on my arm, begging me to let them stay. "It's Matthew's house, our family's house." But I knew better now. They didn't want the memories. They wanted the value. As the new family finally moved in, my in-laws left, humiliated. They were still fuming, still spewing accusations as they climbed into their car. I closed the door behind me, feeling a strange peace. But things didn't end there. My mother-in-law's behavior grew more erratic. She tried to find my new address, and when that failed, she took to haunting the old house. The new family called me once to report her lurking outside, pleading for entry. Then one evening, something far more serious happened. A call came from the new homeowners, their voices panicked. My mother-in-law had been caught trying to start a fire on their lawn, dousing the bushes in gasoline before the neighbors stopped her. She was arrested for attempted arson, and any chance she had of getting close to the house vanished. The ordeal affected my father-in-law, too. He distanced himself from her, embarrassed and tired of the chaos she'd brought into their lives. Eventually, he filed for divorce, cutting ties and moving on, leaving her to face her consequences alone. In the aftermath, I returned to my quiet life. My brother-in-law, the only family left from Matthew's side, became a source of strength. He reminded me that I wasn't truly alone, offering his support. Together, we visited Matthew's grave and shared memories, his words a comfort as we pieced our lives back together. Though I missed Matthew every day, I found peace in knowing he was free from the turmoil his family had left behind. With my daughter by my side, I looked forward, cherishing each new day, secure in the knowledge that my life was once again mine to live.